It is interesting to note how from generation to generation, a group of people have made themselves the enemies of Biafrans. Sometimes you have to ask yourself why, but the truth here is that the more you ask why, the more you cannot find the answers. And because the mystery behind anything that is divine and of truth is that it definitely would have enemies. And why those enemies would come, you cannot understand. And that is the plight of Biafra people. BBC has been one of the fundamental enemies against Biafra nation and the Biafra people. And we all can attest to the fact that BBC was the major player, public player in destroying the reputation of Biafra people and fighting against us being seen by the world as people who are truly fighting for survival and freedom. And they projected to the world in those days when media, the mainstream media, was the main source of information. The common people cannot have access unless they look through the mainstream media. They were able to sell the narrative of hate and curse against Biafra nation. Until today, the BBC has been in the front campaigning for the total destruction of Biafra on behalf of the British Empire. And today I want to expose another program and plan. And this particular one is concerning Mazi and Kanu, and by extension to Biafra people. And you must know that Mazi and Kanu is a complete representation of who we are. And he is actually, wherever he is right now, representing us. So whatever is done to him and wherever he is tantamount or evident of where we are. And for those of you who are allowing yourselves to be used, I pity you. Those allowing yourselves to be used by the Nigeria agents, people like Udele or Ijele or whatever they call that guy, and Ikenga, Rago, and other people who are allowing themselves to be, I mean, it pains me so much, but it's unfortunate that these kinds of things can be found amongst our people. We cannot tell why, because from time immemorial, you know, humanity has suffered such kind of cruelty and brutality from the sphere of lies and hate. Truth had always been haunted from time, you know, and you can attest to that fact. You see it in the Bible, Cain and Abel, and Cain is told the truth, and he goes after the truth, and he kills Abel, his brother. There's so many instances where things are happening. I want to draw your minds to the issue of Mazi and Kanu and the BBC. Of course, we know that last week, 20th of November, making about 6 days today, or the 7th day, 1 week from, and since today is the 27th of November 2025, and days ago, Mazi and Kanu was convicted by the courts of the contraption and the injustice. Omotosho made his pronouncement, scripted already in Asurok, and forwarded to him, and he only came to give us the reports, you know, and submit it to us. They have done their homework. They feel that they have held every one of us docile. They have silenced those who would speak, you know, in our midst, the politicians and some IPOB members, especially of the hierarchy, you know, and they think that they are in control of Biafra land by using more money to buy the voice of those who would have spoken or led the people into resistance. And all of these things are happening. And BBC came up and gave some, I'm going to expose some stuff about the BBC here to prove to you that BBC is till date still biased and still a hater of the Biafra people. And you begin to wonder why it is so. Even up to this generation of people who are in BBC, they took after their fathers who were there causing genocide and giving the leverage for genocide to take over a people or a tribe, the Biafra people. And it is important that this current generation also still told the line, or still tells the line of their fathers in the BBC. And today I want to show you some things that you need to know about this whole thing and this whole narrative. BBC never really gave any very fundamental talk about what happened to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu after the court pronouncement. They only waited until the, about 5 days or so, the 25th day of November 2025, to talk about Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And first they began that he was jailed because he was inciting, insecurity against the people. And they never gave details of how that is, in spite of the fact that BBC claims to be a champion of fact-finding, and they have a fact-finding department, or whatever they call them, those who say they are there to stop or to come against disinformation or misinformation. But yet they could come all out to talk against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and say he is inciting
a series of broadcasts to incite violence and killings as part of a campaign for a separate state in southeast Nigeria known as Biafra. Speaking after his conviction at a court in Abuja, Nnamdi Kanu's defense counsel, Aloy Ejimako, condemned the judgment.
Now, BBC is aware of the fact that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was kidnapped and extraordinarily renditioned from Kenya, and they have the facts of the court ruling, in Kenya, in Umuahia, and other parts of the world, both the United Nations and other parts of the, of other organizations. BBC has information about all these conclusions. Yet BBC still stands on the ground, in spite of the fact that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is a British citizen and was in London broadcasting, and the laws of London couldn't hold him down because he wasn't against the law. He wasn't working against the law. Yet they couldn't go on that fact to stand on their ground to do their fact finding. They concluded that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is causing insecurity and a terrorist based on the Nigeria government pronouncement. In this video, I want to expose so many of the facts that you need to also join in your archives of information, also evidences that BBC is one of the media houses that has been against us. And I will take the publication or the broadcast or the radio publication that was made just 2 days ago, Tuesday, and the 25th of November 2025 by BBC on their program called Focus on Africa. I'll take everything one after the other. I want you to just listen to what BBC and their guests was saying against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu.
Kanu may broadcast, and so what? And you convict him for terrorism for mere words in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What kind of precedent is being laid? So from here, we are heading to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal is the only court in this country, or the next court in this country, that sits as a jury. We are going to approach the justices there to check out what happened in court, and we are pretty sure the justices will agree with us that today was the symbol of the travesty of justice that everybody has been suspecting all along.
But the prosecution counsel, Adeboyega Amolowo, said Nnamdi Kanu's conviction had freed people in the East from persecution by the indigenous people of Biafra, also known as IPOB.
The judiciary has salvaged Nigeria from the claws, from the oppression of the proscribed IPOB. The court has also pronounced death sentence on Eastern Security Network, which was the military wing of IPOB. God has brought an end to injustice, oppression, suffered by our brothers and sisters of the eastern states of Nigeria.
You know, to play the game, the Kanian game and the deception strategy that they always adopt, they first of all wanted to sound or look like they are very fair. And so all they did was to begin with the interview, you know, Aloy Jimako granted after the verdict of the court of the 20th of November 2025. They played that, and where Aloy was saying that this cannot stand, this is injustice and all of that. And after that, they moved on to play the one of Awomolo, who is the chief prosecutor against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And Awomolo said some nonsense in that particular stuff. And I want them to know something, because Awomolo has called God into it, because he made a pronouncement. One side he was talking about God, you know, he said that God has brought an end to oppression and, you know, the pain of the people of Biafra, you know, caused by IPOB. And Awomolo surprisingly said that kind of thing, that God has brought the end by using injustice and motorshot to make wrong pronouncements against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. God has intervened, you know, for Biafra people, or on behalf of Biafra people. A very, very arrant nonsense. You know, let me put it that way, very, very arrant nonsense. That Omotoshot is the one God has used to bring, you know, when God is using Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to liberate the whole of Nigeria. Awomolo is talking about the courts, you know, being the God that has brought about the deliverance of Biafra people and ended their oppression and all of that. So deep within Awomolo, he feels that God has used Omotosho and him to end the oppression and the injustice against Biafra people. So this is the end of injustice against Biafra people, with all the nonsense still going on against Biafra nation, injustice, and so many terrible things going on. To Awomolo, it has been ended by jailing Mazi Nnamdi Kanu for life. Is that what he calls God's intervention? To keep Mazi Nnamdi Kanu jailed, whereas people are being killed daily, and brutally so. I mean, our people are very horrible. I'm not against the Yoruba nation, but some of them can be very, very terrible. Most of the betrayers I've ever had in life is by, in fact, all of them, basically all of them, basically 99.9% of them was by Yoruba people, both in ministry and other things that I do. You know, Yoruba people. But that doesn't mean that I will hate all of them anyways, because I know there might be some people good among them. But I mean, when you see a betrayer in the Yoruba, you know, settings, you know, you see a real betrayer, they can be very dangerous and brutal. Awomolo, that I respected, you know, look at him saying what he's saying. So injustice against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is justice for Biafra people. That's what he's trying to say. Very, very unfortunate. He even mentioned that IPOB is proscribed, regardless of the fact that the international community does not accept that. The courts in Umuahia and other places have said that is false. But he still went ahead to say that IPOB is proscribed as a terrorist organization, when he as a son should know that to proscribe any group or such kind of, you know, conclusions by the court or decision to be made must be legally correct. That means you must go through due process. As a son, the proscribing of IPOB, did it go through due process? If I may ask him as a son, did the proscribing of IPOB go through due process? He's a senior advocate of Nigeria, but yet they are just, I mean, I don't know what to call them. They lack intellectual, you know, reasoning. They are just academic. Even academically, it's wrong, because the proscribing of IPOB didn't go through due process. So how can a son, because of money, say that IPOB is proscribed? And he now says that the court has labeled death sentence on ESN, because ESN was causing the death of people. I'm going to go into the issue of ESN from the, you know, submission of their guests. You know, shockingly, they brought a guest who calls himself an analyst, who would come to speak on behalf of the Nigeria contraption, whereas the defendant, whom they know that people all over the nations of the world are saying he's unjustly jailed, they never brought anybody to talk about his situation or to give more light or throw more light into what the defendant is saying. Rather, they brought someone who will come and analyze, calls himself a human rights analyst, to talk on behalf of the government, to give the narrative of the government that is being accused. BBC knows that they illegally renditioned Mazi and Kanu. BBC knows that they went to his house in 2017 to kill him. BBC has all these information, but BBC still is now going to bring someone who is going to speak on behalf of the Nigeria government and give a perspective so that they would use it as a yardstick for what we should believe in. That is how
Nnamdi Kanu has been in prison since 2021, but he was not in court to receive the verdict. IPOB was banned as a terrorist organization in 2017, and Mr. Kanu denies all charges against him. Bulama Bukati is a Nigerian human rights lawyer and conflict analyst, and he told me more about this movement.
The shocking thing, or the shocker, is that BBC is saying that Mazi and that IPOB is proscribed. That's the shocking thing, and they have fact finding. They claim to be a renowned, station that has the capacity to fact find things. They want to talk about Russia. They want to tell you how they get, facts about Russia and so many people they hate, but they cannot fact find on simple matters as simple as IPOB and Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And they said IPOB is proscribed. How? Did it go through due process? No. And they know this, but they are working on behalf of their government and their paymasters. And to back up what they are doing, they decided to bring in a pro-analyst of Nigeria to give a verdict against IPOB. Such cruel behavior. And we have people, young people in that place, sitting down there talking. And the shocking thing is that the person who is sitting there anchoring the program, Focus on Africa, is an African. She cannot even make her own fact finding. She cannot even tell her bosses, hey, this is not how it is. This is the issue. And they have updates of things that are going on. They cannot do all of that because they are all concerned about money. A country or a world where money is the driving force. What do you expect? But anyways, we have people who have not sold their conscience.
Nnamdi Kanu came to prominence over the past 5-10 years when he started facing terrorism charges in Nigeria. He is the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra called IPOB. He created this group in 2012 with the central aim of recreating the state of Biafra, which existed in Nigeria between 1967 and 1970. At least on paper, it existed when an army colonel, Odumegu Ojukwu, declared the state of Biafra, which led to the Nigerian Civil War that raged for 3 years between 1967 and 1970 and led to the loss of between 1 million and 3.5 million lives. The declared state was dissolved at the end of the war in 1970 after Biafra was defeated by the Nigerian troops.
And you know what? The Nigeria analyst, said that Biafra was defeated in 1967, 1970. He said the Biafra war. He talked about Biafra being, declared in 1967, which led to the Biafra war. He never told us about what led to the Biafra war, what really was the reason why the Biafra war began and who began the war. He never mentioned all of that. He just said Biafra was pronounced or declared in 1967. He never told us why Biafra was declared and pronounced in 1967, why Ojukwu took that decision to do that. He never told us the problem. He never told us how it led to that. He never told us about the fact that this and this and this was committed against the Biafra people. when they came on to declare their own freedom based on this done against them. He just told us that Biafra was declared, and then it's led to the civil war, or it's led to the war. And he didn't call it genocidal war anyways, but it's genocidal war, which we all know. Now, what led to who invaded? He never mentioned it, but he said.
Now, Nnamdi Kanu started his group in 2012, calling it IPOP, and his aim was to recreate that state that existed during the Nigerian Civil War. He also started a radio station in London, because he was based in London at the time, called The Voice of Biafra, and used it to broadcast to Nigeria. That continued until 2020, when the group started moving towards incitement and violence. He used the radio to incite violence against Nigeria, against Nigeria's security forces.
IPOB moved towards incitement of violence in 2020. Is that it? IPOB moved towards incitement of violence in 2020. Just like that. IPOB began in 2012 and then went into violence in 2020. Just like that. What is the violence? What's the evidence of the violence? Where is it proven that IPOB went into violence in 2020? Was it IPOB that instituted the NSARS? Was it IPOB that was in Lagos? Was it IPOB organizing the protest? No. But IPOB went into incitement of violence, according to him. Who killed the protesters at Lekki Tollgate? Was it IPOB? Who were those killing people, around Lagos? Was it IPOB? And so when you want to tell me that when people are attacked, killed in the midst of protest, and the people begin to react, they have no right to react. And because Nnamdi Kanu was talking that day and tell the people to defend themselves, he has incited violence, when violence was already incited before the people began to react. And how do you call it violence against the state and government when it is actually the state and the government that instituted the violence? So are you saying that those who were falling and dying don't deserve to be avenged or revenged? Or it does not, the people must not react at that point in time towards the killing of their friends, their colleagues, and all of that at that particular time? And this man is saying that IPOB incited violence from the year 2020. So which means that setting up ESN, which Mazi Nnamdi Kanu several times told the governors, we need to set up security outfit for the whole of Southeast. For the whole of Southeast, at least Southeast first. And they refused. He said the whole of Biafra land must be secure. We need to secure it because of the Fulanis. And he went ahead to institute ESN. And ESN became the protection for the communities, protecting the bushes. And this man said, by setting up ESN, it was an incitement of violence. Whereas the militias coming from Niger Republic, from Libya, from Somalia, from Mali, from all those places, coming in from the Sahel, all coming in, trooping in, was not an incitement of violence. Shetima and Co, Kwankoso and all those people sponsoring these terrorists. Buhari and Co, who opened the floodgates of hell. Erufai and Co, sponsor Patani, all of them, the Sultan of Sokoto, who's brought these people into the system, are not inciting
Consequently,
violence.
the national chairman of Mietiala was paid to bring in foreign mercenaries. Within a month, about 6,000 Fulani fighters were brought in from Mali, from Senegal, from Niger Republic, Chad, Libya, and other countries. On arrival, they were assembled in Kaduna under the sponsorship of Nasir El-Rufai and were addressed by many northern leaders, including the Sultan of Sokoto, General Muhammadu Sahad Abubakar. Specifically, Buhari in his address told the fighters that the British handed Nigeria over to the Fulanis at independence, and that Nigeria belongs to Fulanis. They must therefore reclaim, their mission is to reclaim what belongs to them. He added that at the event that Jonathan Goodluck won the election, the Fulani machinery must fight until they regain control of the country. He assured them that the Nigerian army was behind them. The mercenaries received training from the commandant of the Nigerian Defense Academy and were sent to 6 camps in Ekiti State, Benue State, Katsina State, Kaduna State, Zamfara State, and Borno State. In the camps, brand new pickup trucks, generators, etc., were provided for them.
From this video, we have the information of those who actually led the invasion of Nigeria. The President Buhari, El-Rufai, and co mentioned here. And this man is not talking about this, but he's talking about IPOB defending themselves or defending itself as inciting violence. Look at him saying that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu used IPOB and the radio to incite violence against security agents and the state. Used the radio to incite violence. If I ask him, or if we want to probe him now, we'll discover that he doesn't even know anything about Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's broadcasts. He doesn't have details of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's broadcasts. But he's saying Mazi Nnamdi Kanu used the radio. How many of the broadcasts have you listened to that made you come to that conclusion as someone who is an analyst? Or analysts will just appear and begin to analyze without getting their facts right? Every broadcast Mazi Nnamdi Kanu made had a reason for that broadcast. And where you see him say that people should pick up arms and defend themselves, you know that the people have been killed and attacked. And it is constitutionally right for people to defend themselves when they're attacked. So why would an analyst come to say what he doesn't know? Why would an analyst just make statements and he calls himself an analyst? You are not an analyst.
He also used the radio, according to court documents, to teach his members how to make explosives.
Mazi Nnamdi Kanu used the radio to teach people how to make explosives. What a stupid talk. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu used the radio to teach IPOB members how to make explosives. How? People are being shot at, and it says if you have anything to defend yourself around there, you can use bottles and put petrol and all of that and defend yourselves. People are being shot at with dangerous weapons, AK-47 and so many Mark 5 and other things. And he's telling them to defend themselves and telling them how to get things around to defend themselves. Things that are even lesser than what is even facing them. And he said he's teaching people how to make explosives. Is that how you analyze things? As an analyst, a so-called analyst who is not intellectually grounded.
And then later inaugurated with what he called the Eastern Security Network, ESN, which is also called as Unknown Gunmen. And that group started launching attacks on federal government institutions located in the southeast, as well as security forces and northern Nigerians resident in the southeast.
Mazi Nnamdi Kanu set up ESN, also known as Unknown Gunmen, and they began to launch attacks on government institutions in southeast, and also attacking northern residents and security operatives. So ESN in the bush, dealing with the Fulanese, is now the one attacking government, security forces, institutions, and northerners resident in the east, southeast, or in the south. So what you are trying to tell us as an analyst is that the Fulanese that are in the bushes of Biafra land, of which ESN was dealing with, are actually government security forces and residents of the northern extraction. And what you're saying to us in a nutshell is that these guys are actually government agents, those Fulanese being killed in the bush. That means those people ESN is taken care of in the bushes are government forces, security forces. So you see, that's how they shoot themselves on the foot. Now ESN, everyone knows ESN is in the bush taking care of Fulanese. When Mazi and Kanu was there, they were in the bush, and Mazi and Kanu said it, none of them should come out. They should remain in the bush and flush out all Fulanese in our bushes, all the terrorists in our bushes. And here is this man coming to tell us, and BBC never queried it, never asked them questions, never said, oh, are you saying that the people ESN is dealing with in the bushes are the security forces, of Nigeria? They never asked them that question because they have come together to cook up lies to pass on to us so that people will believe and the gullibles will believe. And that is what the plan and program is. So here these analysts exposing here now that ESN began to deal with people, and he called ESN unknown gunmen. Well, the ESN has never been unknown gunmen. ESN, whenever they come out and they do what they do to the Fulani terrorists, they always say ESN. We have evidence that, of course, there are videos out there that proves that the unknown gunmen.
And in 2015, Kanu was arrested by the Nigerian government. He was released on bail in 2017, and he fled Nigeria after he was released on bail.
Now, here an analyst talking rubbish here, saying that Mazi and Kanu was arrested in 2015 and was released on bail in 2017, and he fled the country. He fled the country. Wonderful. Are we this evil to ourselves and to the world? BBC and this idiot speaking here. You said Mazi and Kanu fled the country. Why did he flee the country? You never mentioned. Mazi and Kanu was released on bail and he fled, giving an impression that as soon as he was released, he ran away. When it has been said over time, and even the courts have settled it, that even the Supreme Court said it, that this man ran for his life. And you are propagating such narrative that he fled the country. And BBC kept quiet because they are conspirators. They are part of the plan, the program, and the design. Said Mazi and Kanu fled the country after released on bail. When it is evident and clear, even from the Supreme Court submission, that this man fled for his life. You don't expect someone who is about to be killed to sit down and watch himself to be killed. Even animals don't do that. Animals would want to react. You put a dog, you're killing a dog here now. The other dog is watching. The other dog is going to attack you or run away. Because people are conscious of life. Life is very sensitive. And somebody here is going to come to his household. This man, this analyst, is going to come to his house. He's going to come to his house. This death, this evil that he's preaching here will come to his house. And both all the BBC and all these people, all of them in the houses, to come to the houses. And everyone.
In 2021, he was rearrested in Kenya and extradited to Nigeria, since when he has been facing terrorism charges in Nigeria.
Saying that Mazi and Kanu was arrested in Kenya and extradited. Oh my God. Even the Kenyan courts have said it, that it was an illegal rendition. The United Nations special report says it, that This man was extraordinarily renditioned. It has been made clear by facts and submissions that he was extraordinarily renditioned. He was not arrested and extradited lawfully. And here is an analyst, a political or whatever he calls himself, analyst, spewing lies comfortably, and BBC is absorbing it and not saying anything. And then they begin to ask stupid questions. The BBC couldn't ask the relevant questions. Rather, they began to
So
ask
to what
stupid
extent
questions
has his
and listen to the
campaign for
questions.
independence inflamed tensions in the southeast?
To what extent has this issue of agitation inflamed insecurity in the southeast? Is that a question? You didn't ask questions on the critical points this man made to give facts of the truth. You're asking to what extent has asking for freedom and agitation for freedom inflamed crisis in the southeast? How can it inflame crisis in the midst of the people who want their freedom? It will only create chaos when there is a foreign attack in the midst of the people seeking for their freedom. There goes BBC. They never asked about the information this man is giving, the lies he's perpetuating and giving out to the public on their platform. Rather, they're asking to what extent has his asking for independence or his push for independence created insecurity in the southeast or inflamed insecurity. That means when you ask for independence, you are inflaming insecurity. To what extent they're asking? Is it not stupid? Is that not a stupid question? You are asking the people who are going through hell and asking for their freedom, how their freedom is inflaming insecurity. Whereas you should be asking, what is the reaction of those who are putting these people in bondage? And what is their response to the request? Rather, you are trying to make it look like the person who is asking for his freedom is the one creating and causing the insecurity. And that's what the question that BBC could ask, in spite of the fact that this man told so many lies within how many minutes of saying some nonsense. They never ask critical questions. They just want to go by the script. After he has said the whole lies, they now begin to ask him questions that will indict Mazi and Kanu more. That means he's the one causing the insecurity.
It has hugely inflamed tensions, especially during the NSAS protests. You would remember the NSAS protests in 2020. Kanu used the chaos that was created by the NSAS protests to incite violence on Nigerian security forces and Nigerian institutions. And the formation of his Eastern Security Network led to many attacks on security forces, on federal government buildings, and on Northerners residents in the southeast. According to SBM Intelligence, a security firm based in Lagos, the violence by the Eastern Security Network, or the unknown gunmen as they call them, had led to the death of about 700 Nigerians and has also caused Nigeria economic loss of about $5.3 billion. Now, one of the major activities of the group that was formed by Kanu was to enforce what they call every Monday to be sit-at-home Mondays, and therefore they do not allow business people or schools or markets or any institution or place to open in the southeast. And that is what led to the economic loss of about $5.3 billion, according to intelligence. And people who defied the sit-at-home orders were attacked and many were killed. And that is what accounted for the 700 or so people who died. Not only the death and the economic loss, it also led to tension and panic and just general atmosphere of apprehension in southeastern Nigeria, dividing Nigerians and creating tensions among those in the southeast, especially those who support IPOB and other Nigerians.
He's saying that Mazi Nnamdi inflamed tension and crisis during the EndSARS 2020, October 2020, and he capitalized on the chaos. Now, the chaos he's talking about here, now who created the chaos? The EndSARS was peaceful. Nobody was, carrying weapons. Nobody was fighting anybody. Nobody was armed, nothing like that. But the government began to bring in people to cause chaos. And these people who came to cause chaos were armed. Now, he never talked about those who caused the chaos. Rather, he's saying that Mazi Nnamdi capitalized on the chaos. So who caused the chaos? That's the big question. Why didn't BBC ask him who caused or who created the chaos that Mazi Nnamdi capitalized on? That's if there's anything like that. He said he capitalized on chaos. So if you bring chaos into my house, you come to kill me, you come to attack me, I should be quiet. If I react, it is chaos. Is that what you're trying to say? He capitalized on the chaos. So they were killing the people, and Mazi Nnamdi now spoke out for the people to defend themselves. And he said he capitalized on the chaos. He capitalized on that situation. How? If this was the situation a situation of life, it was a situation of death. The people were being killed, and he's telling them what to do because it is their right to defend themselves when they attack them. All of that. So what is he saying here? An analyst, a Nigerian analyst. I tell you, it's either you're a Nigerian or you are intellectual. You can't be the two because the other is the opposite of the other. Look at him talking. He said he capitalized on the chaos. Which chaos? Who created the chaos? He couldn't answer. The BBC couldn't ask him. Whenever you want to tell lies, you definitely will you will do lots of wrongs. That's how it works. He still went on to say that the formulation of ESN led to the death of security forces and all of that. ESN was created and formed and put in the bush. And instruction was given boldly and openly on that same radio that he is saying that was used to inflame violence. The broadcast there was that ESN is in the bush. We are dealing with the Fulanese. We have told the governors to set up security platforms to deal with this, but they are not doing it. So we are now taking steps as civilians who are concerned and as people who have been affected. We're now setting a structure to end this madness. And the people who are dealing with this madness, are in the bush or in the bushes. Yet he didn't see all of that. He said ESN was set up, during that EndSARS period to cause chaos and to kill the indigenous Northerners and the security forces, which means what he's saying here is that the people being attacked in the bushes or being faced squarely by ESN in the bushes, those who came to kill our people. What he's saying is that every of the Fulanis in the bush, the terrorists in the bush, are actually government operators or government forces representing the government, and so dealing with them is dealing with the Nigerian security forces. That's what he's saying. So now we see another evidence of an analyst coming to tell us and proving to us that the Fulanis are working for the government. This is a clear proof of it. A clear proof of it. And these are the things we're saying. And people must come to understand all of this stuff. So it is clear and evident here that these people in the bushes that ESN created and put in the bushes to deal with all these terrorists in the bushes, these people in the bushes, which he is calling now, he's calling them government forces and northern residents in the east. Now, these are proofs that these people are working for the government of Nigeria and they're working together. That's what it is. And he's telling you that ESN led to the death of about 700 Nigerians. Who are the 700 Nigerians? Who? So those people being shot by the military at Lekki toll gate, those shooting them are members of ESN? Or is there something we don't know here? This figure he's mentioning here, is it the number of people killed by the military or number of people killed by ESN? Or is he saying that those people killed in the bushes, those terrorists killed in the bushes, are the citizens that were killed or the Nigerians, in spite of the fact that they are coming from Sahel and from other parts of the Sahel and Mali, Libya and all of that, that they're coming in and as terrorists being killed, they are Nigerians that ESN is killing. So you see how they're exposing themselves and exposing their criminality and everything about them. You see it. Said it cost Nigeria about $5.5 billion losses, including the issue of the seat at home. According to him, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu enforced sit at home on Mondays. Liars. Liars. Honestly, if we don't get tough with these liars and allow them to continue to parade themselves around, it's going to be very detrimental and disastrous. Look at him saying that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu instituted a sit at home on Mondays, and then it's led to the death of so many people. People were forced to stay at home. Those who didn't stay at home were killed, and it has led to the death of about 700 Nigerians. Wow. In the first place, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was in detention, and the people decided to sit at home because of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. It was not set up by anybody. The people decided. When IPOB first said sit at home, they later cancelled it, especially the members of the DOS, because some of them compromised. And then the people said, no, you can't cancel it. We're going to sit at home. And that's how the people began to sit at home. We had some criminal elements that came later who were shown, in some videos, attacking people's goods and all of that, destroying people's goods because they refused to sit at home, or flogging people and beating people up. And some of the criminal groups created by the government and other people to indict Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, who began to use the sit at home as a means of attacking people. But here he is now mentioning that it was Mazi Nnamdi Kanu who created those people and told them to go and kill people for refusing to sit at home, and he said they killed about 700 people. Can he give us the figures? Can he tell us where the 700 people were buried and all of that? We can tell you that the NSAS, people were killed. There are pictures and videos that have been shown, and we can tell you that the military took so many of the bodies away. There are proofs. But the 700 killed because of sit at home, he cannot show it, he cannot give us evidence. BBC could not ask him to bring evidences. But he said it, and
so
it was
let's
fine.
go
And
a little
BBC
bit
went to the
further,
next
because
question.
based on what you're saying there, Balama, Nnamdi was quite active. So where did he get his support from?
Where did MNK get his support? Now, is that the problem? Somebody's agitating for freedom and independence. You ask him where he's getting his support. Is that the problem? You should ask, the problem should be, what is this person going through? Why is this person agitating? What are the things that are making these people agitate? What is supposed to be done to make sure that these people get their things or get the right things done so that they don't suffer? And all of that. They're asking, where is he getting support from? So the problem is that the people who are supporting Mazi Nnamdi Kanu are the problem, not the people sponsoring the terrorists. Those ones are not the problem.
Yeah, I mean, he got his support from some people from the southeast who also agree with Kanu that the Igbo people are being systematically oppressed and marginalized in Nigeria, and they support the independence of the state of Biafra. But to be honest, most of his support, even from the southeast, only came before the group went violent. Once the group went violent, many people withdrew their support. So he got his support from there. And those supporters also financed Kanu's campaign through crowdfunding and activities related to that.
From the people of Southeast who also believe that the Igbos have been marginalized. The big question is, let's ask the analyst, are the Igbos being marginalized? He never answered that. BBC, did you ask him if the Igbos are being marginalized? BBC never asked that question because BBC is not concerned about that. BBC is just concerned about why he should be agitating, who is sponsoring him. And it is good that he is there now, locked up and dealt with. That is the concern of BBC. And talking about marginalization, nobody asked the question, who is marginalizing the people of the East? And why are they being marginalized? Nobody asked that question. Everything was just tilting towards getting at Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and getting at the people of Biafra. And so he said, the people of Biafra, or the people are sponsoring him, those who agree with him, whereas the whole of Biafra land agree that we are marginalized. And here the madman saying that his support only came before IPOB went violent. He said Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was being supported until IPOB went violent. When he went violent, nobody supported him anymore. In the first place, IPOB never went violent. IPOB defended or was defending the East or Biafra land. And for that sake, people were supporting massively. In fact, it was when we began to get armed that people supported more, because we had to arm ourselves against the death that is being sent to us.
And what has been their reaction to the verdict?
So, I mean, the reaction to the verdict in Nigeria is controversial. Politicians and some people from the Southeast feel it is injustice, and they advocate for reconciliation or negotiation between Kanu's group and the federal government. And this includes senior politicians like the former presidential candidate, Peter Obi, who was also a governor in the Southeast. But in the rest of Nigeria, Kanu's conviction and sentencing is seen as a clear indication that the federal government wants to clamp down on violence in Nigeria, and therefore it is held, and many people in many places in Nigeria are calling for other leaders of terrorist groups to be arrested and prosecuted in the same way.
And funny enough, BBC is asking another funny question. What is the reaction of the people against the verdict on Mazi Nnamdi Kanu? And the useless analyst is saying that the response is that people now see that the government is serious about clamping down on insecurity. Whereas Shetima is still there, sponsor of terrorists, RFI, and all the people who brought this terrorist in are still there. And he says this shows that the government wants to end insecurity and is coming against those who are causing the insecurity. You can imagine the madness what Nigeria is. You can imagine how BBC is being used here. And I know that they have given BBC good money to actually make this program, because they made it 5 days or 6 days or so after the verdict. 5 days after the verdict, they didn't carry out all of this stuff. They never called anybody who is on Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's side or from Biafra to talk about this, because that is where they should be talking to people who are on the receiving side, the receiving side, and the people who are suffering. They shouldn't be talking to the people who are punishing the people and dealing with the people. But they are calling somebody who is speaking on behalf of the government. And that's what BBC has proven to be, the evil media house that has fronted the genocide against Biafra people from time. And I tell you, BBC and Britain are going to get it hot. They would get it hot. That empire will crumble, the people will crumble, and their nation will continue to be in turmoil and turbulence for what they are doing to Biafra people, unless they remove their hands from the lives of the people. And I tell you, we're going to be free. I wanted to share this broadcast on all the social media platforms. I just took my time to talk about these things, quietly, and so that you can understand and know what we are facing, and also channel your energy to the right things and the right people we need to deal with. And I tell you that God, Chukwuokike, is with us, and we're going to succeed. We're going to get Biafra. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will be released very soon. And I tell you, keep praying for him and keep believing and trusting Chukwuokike to be with us to get results for us. I thank you all for watching. I thank you for being part of this. Please share far and wide, send your comments, and let me hear your views about the whole narrative here. And then also, please subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed, so that we can go far and more. And then also like this video and share. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and God bless you real good.